balls so dry, they explode like dust.
Suck my balls, suck my balls.
You must suck my golf balls. Mommy,
Yes?
suck my balls.
You got a lot of growing up to do, buddy. Suck my balls.
Sorry I'm different, but you can just suck my clit and my balls. You know what? You know what? That's what. Suck my clit and balls. I don't have to suck your balls. Before this day is over, you will suck my balls. Suck my balls, fat ass. I will. I will suck your balls, Kyle. And I will get down on my knee and I will suck your balls. I'll suck them dry, Kyle. Suck my balls, Kyle. Well, excuse my French, Mrs. Marsh, but you can suck my fat, hairy balls.
Suck my big balls in your hairy butt balls. Suck my big balls in your hairy butt balls. Your hairy butt hole.
What is that?
It's my balls.
God damn it, Carmen!
How would you like to suck my balls?
What did you say?
I'm sorry. Actually, what I said was... How would you like to suck my balls, Mr. Garrison?
Holy shit, dude.
Since the last South Park, you've waited 4 long weeks to find out who the father of Eric Cartman is. Now, finally, the shocking truth about Cartman's lineage will not be seen tonight so that we can bring you the following special presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen, ha ha ha, that's right, April Fools. We're back for another edition of Suck My Balls, a South Park review. I'm your host of the most who lives on the West Coast, ya boy, MSG, and I am joined by my best friend who's technically on the Southwest Coast. His name is Ian Colano, a.k.a. Scoop Jackson. As he takes a drink. And if you are watching this video-wise, this is our first video we're uploading of the show right here on the YouTubers and probably other video media outlets or something. I mean, I have a affiliated Twitch account. I can upload content too. So man, check us out. Hami Media Group Twitch. I'll probably upload it there as well. But yes, if this is your first time listening, watching the show, how's it going? We are big South Park nerds, huge nerds, and we have already completed 14 episodes, the whole first season, including Jesus versus Frosty and Jesus versus Santa, which you can listen back right here and a litany of other networks online at anchor.com/suckmyballs. You can go there, go to anchor.com/suckmyballs/support if you'd like to become a monthly contributor. On top of that, you can also just find us on anything like, Google, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, Breaker, Pocket Casts, other places.
You can fucking find us.
You can fucking find us. We'd also like to mention, if you're watching this on YouTube, this is not suitable for children. Do not demonetize us and do not contact the FCC. Say we are making content for kids, because we're not. So go fuck yourself.
Go fuck
Suck
yourself.
my bad. A South Park review. This is episode number 15, the episode for the recording. And what we decided to do, of course, is delivered this to you on April Fool's Day, just like Matt Stone and Trey Parker did back on April 1st, 1998. So 22 years later to the day, and we drop a review. Now, we didn't plan it. Pretty serendipitous, pretty freaking cool, don't you think?
Yeah, I think we're almost kind of in linear, like we're almost in time with the way that they were in production almost. We're like pretty close.
Pretty close. I would say after we get through season 2, which will probably be by the end of the summer, then we'll start to get ahead of them because, they take breaks and we're just going to keep going. We're going to keep going and keep delivering more content to you on a weekly basis, sometimes twice. Maybe we'll give you 2 times in 1 week. Who knows? But if you keep your notifications hot and you subscribe to us on any of our podcast media outlets and now here, our video outlet as well, you'll find out. This episode was a very elaborate April Fool's Day prank, as we mentioned, on South Park and on the fans. We're talking about fans itself who had been waiting for weeks, 4 weeks since the end of season 2. Because back then, what would happen is South Park for the good first, I'd say good 5 to 10 seasons. They would do a like kind of like a winter season and a spring season. You know what I mean? So they would go like September through December, and then they'd come back in March, and then they'd go through May. Well, for the first season, being that they were just on the air and they delivered 13 episodes, they went from September all the way through February, took a 4-week break, and bam, now they're back. So the fans were clamoring, right? Because they left on a cliffhanger, as we talked about, and as how the last podcast ended. Who is Eric Cartman's father? And so this episode, as you heard at the beginning of this podcast and at the beginning of this episode, it starts off with the announcer coming on, and it goes, the announcement for the viewers have been waiting for weeks. The answer to the mystery of who is Eric Cartman's father. But then it goes, will not be seen this evening, as we're proud to present you at the HBC special. And then it goes, Terrence, Phillip, an HBC special, not without my anus. Dude, this was hilarious. Like, I remember I wasn't as much into South Park at the time. As I've mentioned, I really didn't get into about the 3rd season, but I recall hearing this, and I remember being like 10 and thinking, oh, that's funny. Like, because it was on the news, or they're being talked about by, like, you know, morning shows and stuff like that you watch with your parents watch. And I remembered thinking, man, that's really smart. That's really cool. I kind of want to watch this show. And my parents being like, no, you're not going to watch this show. So as I've mentioned before in previous podcasts, eventually I did in the 3rd season start sneakily watching it. And you did too. But
same.
What did you think? I mean, because the first time you went through and watched this season, or watched this episode, as far as the first time you're watching season 1, season 2, how did you react?
So I remember, like you, I wasn't that into South Park at this time, but I had a couple friends that were, and it was kind of like making me inch closer and closer to it. And I remember them being actually genuinely upset.
Really?
And yeah, that like not that they were, oh, I'm never watching the show again, but they were just like, you know, it's fucking annoying, dude. You know, and it's hard to like exactly how it was, but I just remember a couple of my friends being upset, kind of annoyed at it. They're like, they weren't even gonna bother watching the actual episode. This is 98. Yeah.
98, man. Yeah, I had just turned 10 for context, but you know, I bet you, or if there's probably somebody out there going, wow, you were 10 in 1998. as we get older, right? You were doing 12?
Yeah. Shut up.
Yeah.
But and then
that middle generation.
And at this time, this is when they actually started to get traction, and you know, my parents actually started to, whoa, you can't be watching this because this episode is basically nothing but fart jokes. And they're not
100%.
100%, and most of them aren't even like tastefully funny. It's just
So,
you want to lick my butthole? You know, like shit like that, right?
Yep.
So, as we mentioned, the episode comes off with that announcement. So, the whole arc story of this episode, the cartoon itself, it starts off in the Canadian courtroom with Terrence and Phillip. They're on trial for the murder of a local doctor.
Before you today sits a murderer. On the night in question, this monster entered the home of Dr. Jeffrey O'Dwyer and struck him repeatedly in the head with his hammer. That monster is sitting right over there, and his name is Terrence. Terrence, you farted in court.
Yes, Philip, I'm making a case for our defense.
And the reason why they're on trial is, which we'll talk about in the next episode, but apparently Terrence and Phillip on a weekly basis are sought out by Scott. He's a dick.
Scott, you dick.
Scott's a journalist, apparently, and he's a dick. And every week, according to Terrence and Phillip, he tries to constantly set Phillip up for something. There's not a lot to say too much about this scene. They're basically in court. Fart jokes are, going on. Scott makes his case. Terrence and Phillip make their case as the jury gives their deliberation. They are farting, and they're like, not guilty. And Terrence and Phillip get off scot-free from whatever they did. They probably did the crime, you know what I'm saying? I bet you Scott really isn't a dick. You know what I'm saying?
Their defense was nothing but fart jokes.
Their defense was not. They did not use the Wookiee defense. That did not make sense.
Does that make sense? No, it did not make sense.
It didn't make sense for a gold room. We talking about Chewbacca in a courtroom? I don't think so. That don't make sense. Does this make sense?
That don't make sense.
If you don't think this makes sense and none of this things make sense, that does not make sense. I rest my case. So the Terrence and Phillip, they are obsessed fully with Kraft Dinner. I'm not sure why that's a thing there. I didn't really look it up. Did you try to investigate Kraft Dinner?
That sure was fun, Philip. Let's go home and eat Kraft Dinner. Here, here.
No. But this is like the only episode of it too.
It's like a very weird thing. Like, and I hung out with Joe Moran, which he was on last season with us, and he's from Canada, and he never brought up Kraft Dinner. So, Joe, if you're listening, shoot us a message. If you're Canadian, I know we have some Canadian listeners out there. If you are, hit me up. Let us know if you guys like Kraft Dinner a lot. I mean, if that's a thing that we should know about. Shout out to one of our Twitter followers, Chris Mayhew. He wanted just to say he really liked our show. It gets him through a lot of downtime. And when he's not feeling good, he listens to our podcast. And it makes him laugh. So thank you, Chris. We appreciate you. So as we continue.
So the only thing that I can maybe find is that it's for the production is in Canada. Kraft is made in Canada? I don't know. That's the only thing that I can kind of find with the correlation between Kraft and...
What's the location of the production plant?
In Canada?
Yeah. It's in Canada, so there's a production plant in Canada?
The product known as Kraft Dinner.
Kraft Dinner. Because that changes everything, actually. That makes me think that they're just supporting local economy. Maybe they were before they were comedians.
Known as KD in Canada. I don't think it's made there. Okay, so that was a little misinformation. Fake news for me.
All right, so they're not, has nothing to do with that. Okay, there's no production plant in Canada.
Because it was released as Kraft Dinner in Canada.
Oh, that's just the name of macaroni and cheese out there?
Yeah, Kraft Dinner.
So basically, they're just saying, I want to go home and have mac and cheese. They're really obsessed with mac and cheese, is what we learned.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. They're really obsessed with macaroni and cheese, but in Canada, it's called Kraft Dinner. So that's pretty fun.
Why didn't they bring it up in any of the games then? Why wasn't Terrence and Phillip eating macaroni and cheese when they teach you the farts in the Stick of Truth in Canada? The Nagasaki! We're going to teach you. We're going to teach you the Nagasaki.
The Nagasaki.
Oh, they never brought up Kraft Dinner again, except for this episode. I don't know why. So as we mentioned, they go home. You know, they're about to start eating some Kraft Dinner, right? Or I guess they're about to start, making it. I don't know. But eventually, I believe it's Phillip gets like a letter. Is that what it was? Or like he got like a telegram?
Yeah, it was. Well, yeah, wasn't it a telegram?
It was like a telegram or like a letter of some sort. I do apologize if I forgot the little fine detail there. Essentially, what happened?
It was a letter.
It's a letter. Essentially, though, what happens is Scott devises or he gets a phone call from Saddam Hussein.
Hello?
Hello. Is this Scott from Canada?
Yes, it is.
You're a journalist, right?
Yes, I'm a television critic for magazines.
I understand that you hate Terrence and Phillip.
Yes, I do. They think that fart jokes are a sophisticated form of comedy, but they're not.
Well, what if I were to help you get rid of them once and for all?
Who is this?
Let's just say that I'm someone who can help you if you help me. Just call me your old pal, Saddam Hussein.
And Saddam Hussein is like, hey, guy. Hey, friend. Let me come into your country, guy. Hey, guy. Let me come in. Hey, don't worry about it, guy. Just let me come into your country.
Don't worry about it, guy.
Just let me come into your country. So he basically he devises a plan with Scat, who's a dick, and wants Terrence and Phillip gone, that if they basically hold Terrence and Philip hostage in Iraq and then kill him as soon as he gets off the plane. Then Saddam Hussein can come over into Canada. So Scott here, the dick, is actually a traitorous, Benedict Arnold. Benedict is what we call him in the United States. He turned his back on our country. He turned his back on the country, Scoop.
Where's my country going?
Where's my country gone? Oh, Canada. They sang that a lot this fucking episode, didn't they? In every chance they got. Oh, Canada. I don't know the words.
And this is the second time that they use an actual face for somebody, because the rhinoplasty one.
Okay, with David Hasselhoff.
And now we have Saddam, which is interesting because in a couple episodes, don't we have Jennifer Aniston come in? Or is that in the next season?
That is, I believe, in season 3. Getting gay with kids here. I think that might be the season finale. Because
gay with kids is here.
The season finale of this season is Caveman.
Caveman, right?
Remember that one? Mm-hmm. I only froze myself in time like 6 weeks ago or something like that.
And they have him in a little cage from 1990, like 6 months ago or something. Yeah, right.
It was dumb. It's like that parody episode of Simpsons with moon pie, when the old man freezes himself and how long have I been in there? Moon pie.
Moon pie.
I wonder if that episode was the inspiration for Futurama. Come to think about it. Now we're going down some weird rabbit holes here. Let's get back to South.
Let's get back.
So ultimately, they I guess we have to assume this is how Terrence's child, was it Terrence or was it Philip? Terrence. It was Terrence. So it was ultimately Terrence. Ultimately Terrence has a child who's kidnapped in Iraq. A letter comes. Terrence is told, via this telegram letter that you have to go to Iraq and get her, blah, blah, blah. So then he starts to tell Philip his story. It's a 44-hour story because it goes 44 hours later. And as they leave, they're like, any friend of a Kraft Dinner is a friend of mine, or something like that, something stupid. And I'm just thinking, you've been there for 44 hours. Nobody made fucking macaroni and cheese. Like at this point, then, like you didn't make the dinner while you were talking about your story with Celine Dion and how your life came to be. No, you didn't do any of that. I don't. 44 hours on the couch. Do Canadians eat? If you're Canadian, let me know. We're gonna get a lot of hate mail from Canada on this next week. As Scott promises vengeance in this episode, did you notice that he was like, I wish cancer upon you.
Yeah, it was a little silly.
A little kind of fucked up, actually. I don't like
let's not do that.
Oh, let's not wish cancer. So after Terrence explains the story, they go to Iraq. They get on the plane. They get off the plane, grab his daughter, get back on the plane, and leave. It's fine. They get back to Canada, and apparently Saddam Hussein was smart about it. He stowed away or came back on that same plane. And now we have throughout the episode where Terrence and Philip, Terrence, he wants to get back together with Celine Dion, but she's already moved on to Ugly Bob, who looks exactly like the other Canadians, but he's just ugly and everyone's freaked out by him. Saddam Hussein's, they basically they come into the country and they start to take it over, right? That's basically the main portion of this episode, as Terrence and Philip are doing their whatever stupid, lazily day activities of farting and let's look for treasure.
Let's look for treasure.
Let's look for treasure. And the whole episode climaxes in the case of this episode is eventually Saddam Hussein, I believe he kidnaps Celine Dion as Ugly Bob, and Celine Dion are getting it on. And now, she's pregnant and she's like, oh, I'm so torn.
I'm so confused. I love your personality, but you are so wretchedly ugly. Maybe the baby will have your face instead of mine. We can only hope. I suppose we'll be okay as long as you keep that bag on your head. What's this? Oh. Hey there, my name's Saddam. I'm a big fan of polo. I've been searching a long time for you, Celine Dion. Oh, no you don't. She's my bitch. Who are you? I'm Bob, but my friends call me Ugly Bob because I have the features of a deformed burn victim. Really? I thought all Canadians looked alike. Let me see. Ah!
Saddam Hussein, he comes in and basically kidnaps her and takes her to the, I don't know, this was a halftime of the Rough Riders game, the Vancouver Rough Riders versus the Toronto Rough Riders or something like that. Just different city names of Rough Riders. The announcer's like, oh, I can confirmly say that the Rough Riders have the advantage here. Just like, what? So they're at they basically, Scott tells Terrence and Philip that Celine Dion has been kidnapped. He's going to announce his hostile takeover of Canada, and you have to go to the stadium during the halftime show and blow yourself up and kill Saddam Hussein. So they, instead of doing that, they come up with another idea. They're going to use chemical warfare. They're going to use a playbook right from Saddam Hussein's book. He gets everybody in the stadium gas masks or on board with gas masks. And during the halftime, when Saddam Hussein tries to do his hostile takeover, they all fart.
Now, Philip?
Now, Terrence!
Hey, what the hell is this?
They're using chemical warfare! How could they?
And the whole stadium fills up with gas. This eventually kills Saddam Hussein as, you know, he's laying there, and then the citizens tear his body and his head comes off, and that's how he ends up in hell in the movie. But Saddam Hussein, hip hip hooray, he is, Saddam Hussein is dead. And that's like this is like the first time Canada kills Saddam Hussein. The second time later is in the later episodes, which we'll get to.
Second time.
Follow the only road, follow the only road. The only road to follow the only road.
Oh, man. And isn't that true? There's only like one road in Canada.
Yeah, well, it's probably like their main freeway. I don't know. Canadians, hit us up. Again, we're going to get a lot of flack for this episode. So
Probably.
as we finish this up, the Canadians do like this episode, as that was the public reception from Canada. They were like, oh, we actually like this episode. But there was a couple mixed reactions, right? So you got the reviewers. You know, they were kind of mixed on Parker Enstone's elaborate April Fool's Day prank. There was a writer by the name of Diane Wirtz from Newsday said that the episode that fans rioted, which is kind of what you said, that, you know, some jumped ship and never came back. The lesson being pay off our expectations or you'll be sorry. However, there were others in the media basically commending Matt Stone and Trey Parker for making such a bold move and taking this risk. You know, the Claude Felter of the Winston-Salem Journal. Tim Claude Felter. God, that's a weird name. It was funny. Clever move that quickly separated the fans who truly got Parker and Stone's humor. And I think that's pretty good. You know, if, you know, it's who are just kind of there watching for the dirty jokes and the bad words. This was kind of like, are you really a South Park fan? Because if you are, you're going to stick through this episode and more.
Right.
And then at the end of the episode, Terrence and Philip, you know, they celebrate, and that's how that episode ends, as they defeated Saddam Hussein. But there was some underlying tones, you know, that being the topics that, you know, kind of making fun of the audience for caring so much about who the father is of a fictional construction paper character.
Just blatantly makes fun of viewers.
Oh, throughout
So
the whole
funny.
episode.
Through the whole episode, just blatantly doing it.
Even when Terrence and Philip are watching TV, they flip the channels and South Park's on in the background. And if you actually pause it and listen to it really closely, you actually hear Cartman saying, wait a minute, she's my mother? So they actually do tell you right there in the episode. But back then, the technology wasn't as good to where you could, you know, pause shit, slow things down like that. Unless you had, like, you recorded it on a VHS tape and you put it into your computer. And you know what I mean? Unless you were willing to go through all that, you were just like, you didn't analyze it. But they actually do say, she's my mother, she's my father. So, like, they kind of do give it away. But they basically,
That's awesome.
Yeah, they basically though trolled the fans. The episode makes the viewers wait 4 weeks before they return to reveal the identity of Eric Cartman's father, and then the big episode comes, and then it's a throwaway episode. They got Rick rolled, right? It doesn't.
Basically.
Yeah,
Rick rolling.
they got Rick rolled. It doesn't even have to be our characters. It's it's just brief television, like a brief television commercial tease. This is the only time we see them, and it's kind of as far as taking the expectations of the audiences, spitting on them, and making them wait. So that's kind of what I thought about the trolling aspect. What did you think about the trolling here?
Not only did we have to wait extra time for the episode, but it was just a big joke. It wasn't even the right episode. That's
they basically
they have balls for doing this, to be honest.
Yeah. They basically took 2 off characters and made a whole fucking full-edged story.
Full blown, they've got their own story arc and everything, a little backstory to them, I guess you could say. That's never mentioned or brought up again.
It'd be interesting, right? Because they never reference a lot of things, except for Ugly Bob. But
Ugly Bob.
Except for Ugly Bob and Scott the Dick. Otherwise, there's not really a lot of reference stuff from this. But I would say that they tried, I think, to basically kind of give a giant fuck you to the people who criticize them. Like, oh, you think we're just dirty and fart jokes? Okay, here we go. This is a whole fucking episode. A whole fucking episode on
everything. Just all over it.
Now, did you notice that everybody kept this is my second thing as far as some underlying tones, the satire or the ignorance of our Western world of not knowing the difference between Iran and Iraq?
You seem to be taking over Canada.
Taking over Canada? Me? Hey, you need a rest, fella. I'm not hiding any bombs.
We didn't say anything about bombs.
Oh, you didn't? Hey, relax.
We're giving you just 3 years to clear your forces out of Canada. After that, we're gonna bomb all of Iran.
I'm from Iraq.
Iran, Iraq, what's the difference?
Saddam Hussein I'm actually from Iraq. Yeah, whatever. Same thing.
Yeah. I thought that was it's almost a stretch to call it satire. It's just it's real. That ignorance is almost real.
Well, but the thing is, it's also the same. The same can be said for the other side of the world. There's probably a lot of people in England that don't know all of our 50 states. I mean, I don't know all the fucking cities in the Great Britain. Do you?
I know that Britain's a thing. Wales? I don't know. I don't even think that's Britain.
Shout out to our friend Switzerland, which is not Great Britain. We get good numbers from there. Thanks, guys. In Yongtang. Anyway, you'll hear that later. But that's basically kind of the underlying tones was the Iran-Iraq thing. Also, this made fun of a movie. There was a movie itself, or a couple different movies that kind of came out. One of them itself, it was kind of I believe it was called Affliction or something like that, or Afflict, or it was a Sally Field movie, or maybe that's the next episode. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm thinking far ahead, but Sally Field, she did this movie, man. Okay, where her husband, she marries a guy who's from Iraq or whatever, and they're living in America, and her husband kidnaps their child and takes it back to Iraq to raise their child as a Iraqi citizen. And she has to go over there in, of course, an area where women are not regarded, with as high. And she actually kidnaps her son back and brings her son back to America. Anyway, that's kind of what I thought they were kind of making fun of. I always thought it was just, they're making fun of. I have to go to Iraq and get my kid. And then he goes to Iraq, and instead of being there for a whole fucking movie, I got my kid. And he just leaves. Oh man. Okay, so let's get into the ending portion of our show here. If you notice, we are not going line by line, script by script. This is our brand new format. Now we're going to get into let's start with our top, our dislikes, our top 3 or less moments that we may have disliked. The first is the farting in court, and how long this scene lasted. This lasted 3 to 4 minutes, and it was just dumb.
It was a long time. That's all it was just farting. And Scott is, bringing forth a valid argument, all this nonsense, and they're just farting. They could have done a little something different.
They didn't need to use that as the foreground for the the villain, Scott. They could have easily done something else. Right? It could have maybe Scott trying to kill him. I'll get you, Terrence and Phillip. Like, he could have like tried to do some Wile E. Coyote fucking Acme Anvil bullshit. He didn't have to fucking, it didn't have to be a boring court scene. And the thing that also kind of like almost even, agitates you even further as a viewer is you're waiting for the reveal of Eric Cartman's father. And then all of a sudden you're taken into a court scene and it's Terrence and Phillip farting in court.
Yeah. And it's just the whole episode that drags on almost. And it's just, I don't know.
Let's talk about the next thing. Let's see here. The farting itself, I would say, is probably good. And the next place to go, you kind of discussed this that we didn't like. It just was too much farting. Every fucking scene had farting. Oh, I mean, even the climax of the episode where everybody's farting and taking off their pants and farting and putting gas masks on. It was just fart after fart after fart. And we just talked about the fact that we understand that it was like a fuck you to the fans. But as a regular diehard South Park fan, I'm just like, oh, such a stupid episode. We're going to put it on the line here before we even get to the best moments. This was a dumb episode.
So
dumb freaking episode.
Dumb throwaway.
A dumb throwaway. And this podcast review is not a throwaway because we're doing the job for you. But the episode itself was definitely a dumb throwaway. Okay, let's talk about our top 3 moments that we like, or some of our top moments. Terrence and Phillip and Celine Dion having a kid, you said?
Yep, that's hilarious. It's like the most random person they could have picked is this lady who got popular in the 80s from her French albums. Then all of a sudden exploded in America, who was like super popular over here. It's like, I remember even my mom listening to Celine.
Yeah, my mom was into Celine Dion too. I think moms were into Celine Dion, bro. Yeah, so it was funny. It was just a random celebrity they chose, Celine Dion. I would say the next thing, the form of Ugly Bob, which we kind of already talked about. That was a good moment for us. I would like that because that was a nice, like, oh, little breadcrumb there. That's where Ugly Bob came from. I forgot about that because again, this is a fucking throwaway episode. So,
right.
The one thing we didn't talk about from the court scene, there was a black Canadian judge, the only black person in this whole Canadian episode, but it was the black Canadian judge, and I thought that was funny.
Only black Canadian too.
Yeah, only black Canadian I've ever seen in an episode of South Park, I think, to be quite honest.
Yeah, now that we think about it, yeah.
There's been a French Canadian, and there's been like
dressed up.
Oh, I just want to sodomize my little whatever, my boys. I don't know that guy. In Newfoundland. Oh, you're on the opposite side there, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, the one thing we did like was the fact that it was a fuck you to the fans. I mean, like we don't like the farts, but we understand and we do like the fact that it was kind of a fuck you to the fans. If you don't want to get on board with our show, then fuck off, right?
Right.
All right. Well, that's kind of our whole episode, guys. We nailed that down, trying to get the episodes a little bit shorter for you today. Ian, did you have anything else you wanted to comment on this episode? Was it's clearly not in Scoop's top 20.
Not at all. I'm not even sure I'd put it in my top 100. I was just thinking about that, if it could even fit in the. I mean, I'd probably put it at like 287. If we were to like all of the episodes, it'd probably be like.
I put it at 306.
Right.
With Pip being 307. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But that is gonna do it for another edition of Sec Matt Bows. I'm your host of the most lives on the West Coast. My name is Matthew Schaffer. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Matthew_Schaffer. Of course, you can follow Ski Jackson if you want by hitting him up on our Twitter at SuckMyBallsPod. If you're cool, maybe he'll tell you his real Twitter account. But you can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Suck My Balls Pod on Instagram and South Park Pod on Facebook. If you want to give us your thoughts, feedback, we are also taking on a couple different guests this season. I've already lined up 2 different guys from us. We've got Greg coming on from Rat Salad Review for the 4th episode, I believe, for Chicken Lover. Yep. And then we've also got my buddy Joe Vernola, who's also a pro wrestling promoter and a huge South Park fan as well. from Arizona. That's where I met him. Now he lives in Colorado, and he's going to come on and he's going to review with us season 2, episode 11. Plot RL.
I got a rare bone disease. Doesn't that
Oh,
make sense? The PN area.
But before we go, I do have some good news. Guess what, guys? Guess what, Ian?
What?
Can you guess?
Chicken butt?
No.
Oh.
We did give you, ladies and gentlemen, April Fool's episode. But if you manage to listen to this whole episode, then we're going to reward you and let you know. Tune into your feed tomorrow because we will be dropping the next episode. Come on, did you really think we were going to fucking make this our weekly episode? This episode,
Right? Like, fuck. I fucking hate this episode.
balls. So yes,
This episode can take my ass.
You can take my ass. So tune in tomorrow. We'll be dropping it on Thursday, April the 2nd. If you're listening to it later, of Suck My Balls number 16, where we review Cartman's Mom Is Still a Dirty Slut. I'm Matthew Schaefer. He's Ski Jackson. Jack, man.